What's up guys, this is Chris here, and today we've got an entertaining list. Today I'm going to be talking about 10 guns I wish I didn't buy. Oh, we got a malfunction already. That is not great. All of these guns were guns that I was initially interested in, but sort of got catfished and found out they weren't what I thought they were, or at the very least they didn't come out at the quality that I wish they would have. We're gonna have a good mix of guns on this list, from rifles to PCCs to handguns, and all of them are probably going to be best avoided if you can. Now, before we get into the video, I do wanna mention my Patreon supporters. Thank you guys very much. It's because of you guys we have the ammo to do this video, and we really appreciate you guys. If you wanna support us, it's the best way to do it. Just the link in the description below. Also in that description is a link to a local shelter in Ames, Iowa. It's the YSS. Those kids could use your help, so please go down and donate to those kids. Now we're gonna start with number 10, which I would consider one of the better guns on the list, the Ruger LC Carbine 5.7. An interesting gun for sure. It is a 16-inch 5.7 caliber rifle with the ergonomics of the Ruger 5.7 pistol. Good in theory, want the same magazines, ergonomics, but not necessarily great in practice. Compared to a 5.56, a 5.7 is a very weak cartridge, and if you're using a rifle with the exact same weight as a 5.56, you should probably already be using a 5.56. On top of that, the 5.7 is the same price as a 5.56, so you're losing out on two fronts. Add to the fact that the carbine itself was poorly designed. It had a safety I didn't like, a magazine release I didn't like. This magazine release is an absolute disaster. I wouldn't use this gun for self-defense because of this alone. It had basically everything that I didn't like. Fuck this. It was pretty accurate, but the trigger was too long to be quick, and overall I would just say it was kind of a jumbled mess that looked like it was thrown together. It sort of really does feel like somebody put a 5.7 in a Ronin chassis. That's how this gun feels to me. My gun also came with only one 10-round magazine, and not only is the ammunition expensive, but the gun was over $1,000, and for that price I would say pretty much buy any other PCC or any other rifle. If you're still looking for a Ruger PCC, I would recommend the Ruger PC Carbine. In at number 9, we have the least comfortable revolver I've ever shot. This is the Rock Island Armory Model 206. Now, it is a very affordable revolver, and I wanted to get into one because I like the idea of affordable carry guns for people who need them. I was thinking that, man, I could get into a Rock Island because they're okay for the money, and maybe their revolver will actually work well. Well, you can see it's on this list, so it certainly wasn't perfect. Now, the reliability on this gun wasn't bad at all. We did have 1 or 2 light primer strikes in the process of shooting the gun. Well, there we had a failure to fire. However, the ergonomics and shooting experience was terrible. All right, so in 2 shots, that is what happened. It's just beating the daylights out of my hand. The timing was off on the revolver a little bit. The trigger is 13 pounds and it's double action only, which means that you really have to be a good shot to hit anything past 10 yards with this gun, which is concerning. On top of that, when we purchased the gun, it came with 2 sets of grips, although only one fit. And as you can see, the size of the grip is very small, and it was very uncomfortable. The undercut was miserable, the back of the gun isn't beveled, and you certainly notice those sharp edges when you shoot it. So overall, I didn't like the recoil impulse, I didn't like the trigger, I didn't like the fact that I had to custom fit the grips that came out of the box, and if you don't believe me, you can watch that video, I even showed it. So we just put the vise in here to help us put the grips on a little bit. I just wanted to show people we actually did get the grip on. But the gun itself was not what I would consider even worth purchasing for the $300 price point. And the reason for that is not because you can find better revolvers at the $300 price point, but you can find better semi-autos. If you have the choice between this and something like a CZP-10S or maybe a Canik MC9, you would be a fool to buy this. In at number 8, we have the Kel-Tec Sub 2000. I just hate shooting the Kel-Tec Sub 2000. It's an interesting idea, don't get me wrong, and the execution isn't terrible, especially for Kel-Tec, because they make some of the worst guns on the earth. The Kel-Tec Sub 2000 is a decent enough gun to catfish you into buying. It's about a $500 gun that breaks in half, which is pretty cool. It folds in half, and you can fit it into backpacks and things like that. However, for me personally, the reason why I wish I didn't buy it is not that it's the world's worst gun, because it's relatively reliable. It shoots the 9mm cartridge and it takes Glock mags, which are all good things, and I think it was better, you know, maybe 10 years ago than it is today, because there's a lot more competitors today that do that exact same thing better. Now, the Kel-Tec Sub 2000 Generation 3 sort of fixed the optic system. When you fold the Kel-Tec, you can't have an optic on it because it folds into itself, and if you have an optic, it won't fold. It won't do the one party trick that it's decent at. However, the new one twists and folds a little bit differently, so you can have an optic on it. The downside of that is when you fold it up with the optic, it's sort of a weird package because you have an optic shooting out the side, so it doesn't really store as well as maybe something like the Trailblazer or the Smith & Wesson FPC. Add to the fact that the FPC is better than the Kel-Tec in every fucking way, and it is about the same price. I don't really see a reason why you would buy the Kel-Tec. Now, why I wish I didn't buy it is because I just don't like shooting.
Well, alrighty then. I would not say this is pleasant to shoot. Wow, there is some kick to this for sure.
They feel like sort of a garbage rod that shoots a 9mm, and the stock and the grip and the trigger and the entire ergonomics of the Kel-Tec is one of the most uncomfortable guns I've ever shot because of my rather large size, and I would just prefer to never shoot it again. In at number 7, the gun that I was initially talking about how good it was, and that is going to be the Taurus G3C. Now, this particular Taurus G3C was the 3rd version of this handgun that I've purchased and the 5th version of the Taurus G series. I had a Taurus G2, I had the longer barreled version, and then I've also had 3 of these Taurus G3Cs. And traditionally, they were very good for the money. However, this one, as you can see, is not so much. This is a brand new in-box Taurus G3 that didn't work when I bought it. Now, the Taurus G3C is a subcompact 9mm pistol with good features, and I've had a couple before it that had really good reliability, but they are a budget gun after all, and with budget guns occasionally you get budget problems, and in this case this gun not only will not fire, but it will not chamber around out of the box, which means that not only did they not test fire it, they did not check it for quality control, but nobody even really looked at this all that hard and saw that this gun was completely out of battery. Somebody should have very obviously noticed that it didn't work, but none of that still took place, and I think that kind of shows the quality control that you can expect from a company like Taurus. Now, in at number 6, we have a gun that I was super excited about when I purchased it, but not so much afterwards, and that is going to be the Arsenal Strike 1. Okay, well, this is horrible. This is one of the most difficult full-size guns I've ever shot. Now, the Arsenal Strike 1 was a pistol that was hyped up well before it was released inside the United States because it was adopted, at least for a short period of time, by the Russian military and the Russian Special Forces. The first time I saw this gun was actually in a very, very cool Larry Vickers video where he was shooting with Russian Special Forces and they were like shooting each other in the body armor and stuff like that. It's a fucking wild video and you should definitely go check it out. But it got me so hyped for the gun because not only was it being used by Special Forces groups and it was a unique import which I haven't touched, and sometimes I just like things I can't have, but it also happens to run the Bergman system and have, at the time at least, the lowest bore axis of any pistol on the market. Add to the fact that it was being so hyped up, I was so excited to get it, and when I did, I could not have been more disappointed. The shooting experience of the gun totally sucked. It was one of the most unreliable guns we've had on the channel, and it had a myriad of different reliability issues, from failure to feeds to failure to distracts to everything you've ever heard of. On top of that, the gun's over $1,000, making it more expensive than your standard polymer frame striker fired pistol like an M&P or a Glock, which not only performs better in the reliability category, but it also is more comfortable to shoot because it has less perceived recoil. Even though it's got a very low bore axis, it put this weird thing on the back of the grip here that's supposed to hit your hand and close your hand, although I think most people know that you're supposed to grip a handgun hard and you don't need to be punched in the webbing of your hand to let you know. It was one of the more uncomfortable guns that I've shot, and it was a hard gun to shoot because it was not only unreliable, but relatively inaccurate due to the very silly sights and kind of the stupid trigger. Overall, it was a Generation 1 of this gun, and it's best left at the gun store. If you see one of these, look at it, fondle it, but don't buy it. In at number 5, we have every P320 ever. Oh boy. In at number 4, the Stoger STR9. Now, the Stoger STR9 was a relatively good gun when I shot it for the first shots. It's just sort of what happened after the first shots that you guys haven't seen yet. So this is sort of an update version on why you didn't get a 1,000-round review. The Stoger is a polymer frame striker-fired pistol that comes in at the $300 to $400 price point. It is made by a manufacturer which is well known for making decent budget shotguns that do well in competition and in hunting scenarios. This gun actually has a decent ergonomics, decent features, and a pretty good feel. It had a pretty good recoil impulse and comes with a magazine capacity of 15+1 with a 4-inch barrel of 9mm. Here's the downside. The gun itself completely failed after about 200 rounds, and the trigger mechanism stopped working altogether. This could have been a really good gun, and maybe I just had a fluke bad experience. With a base price of $350, I know some of you are going to be saying, what do you expect? It's a budget gun, you're going to have budget problems, and I know I've mentioned that before, but with a company like Stoger, I expected a little bit better, honestly, as far as the customer service and the quality, because they are a faction of Beretta, and Beretta traditionally makes pretty good guns. Overall, though, I would say it's one of the more disappointing guns we've had on the channel. If you had a better experience with the Stoger STR9, let me know in the comment section below. In at number 3, the POF Tombstone lever action rifle. Oh, we got a malfunction already. That is not great. It has a 16.5 inch barrel. It is 5 pounds. It comes in a ton of different colors, but the price is over $2,000. And you're asking me, why would you pay $2,000 for a lever action rifle? Well, first off, it looks cool as shit. It comes with an M-LOK rail and lots of AR-15 style features that I've always wanted in a lever action. Add to the fact that it takes 30 round magazines and the 9mm cartridge, and you have the recipe for a very fun gun. However, sometimes something in theory and in practice is two different things, and the POF Tombstone is exactly that. It was very, very difficult to operate. The lever was extremely hard to use. It made a otherwise awesome looking gun into a very unfun experience at the range. We also had some reliability issues, and the lever itself was designed very poorly in my opinion. I felt like it was designed more for aesthetics than actual function, because it smacked your hand every time you used it, because the gun was so hard to lever. You really had to step into it and man up just to get the gun to work. I also felt like, because it was such a hard gun to shoot and slow rate of fire, I felt like I would have preferred a much cheaper gun and a larger caliber. If the gun's going to take a couple of seconds to cycle between each round, I would rather have something like a 30-30 or a 45-70 than a 9mm. 9mm is great because it's low recoil and you can shoot it very fast, but if you can't shoot it very fast, it's just sort of a handgun round in a very heavy rifle, and what's the point of that? It's a really cool gun to have on your wall, and I think it is a good first start, and I wish someday POF would come out with one of those guns that work perfectly and had that buttery smooth lever of something like a Tactical Henry or maybe a Winchester 1873. If it was as fast as a lever gun like that, man, we'd really have something, because you can shoot lever guns really fast. If you don't believe me, you can watch cowboy action shooting. You just need a slick lever in a solid caliber, and I feel like maybe they can get there someday with the POF with a little bit of redesign and maybe some R&D. They're just not there yet, and for the $2,000 price point, I think it is an outrageous waste of money. In at number 2, we have the Glock 28. It's sort of like a Glock 26, but shittier. It is the .380 version of the Glock 26, same size, same weight, just a smaller caliber that's more expensive, and this gun also happens to not have the Glock reliability. We got the Glock 28 because it was released in Europe, and then it was kind of re-released in the United States after a good wait period to build up anticipation, and I've always wanted one of those because it was sort of an interesting design, but when I got it, I was really unimpressed. It was as expensive or a little more expensive as your standard Glock, but again, it was basically a too big .380 with a limited capacity that was unreliable, and when I buy a Glock, I want it to be absolutely reliable. That's their selling point. That's why they're the gold standard. They don't have the best features, they don't have the best trigger, they don't have the best sights, but they are reliable. And in the case of the Glock 28, it gives you nothing you want and everything you don't. So I would recommend avoiding it, and you probably don't have to worry about it because most people avoided it. As soon after I bought the gun, I immediately traded it for, believe it or not, a Glock 26, which I think I should have bought in the first place. There aren't going to be any honorable mentions for this video because we do plan on doing a follow-up next month. We're going to get into it with number 1 here, and that's going to be the Springfield St. Victor, the biggest dumpster fire we've ever had on the channel. Oh, we had our first failure already. Are you kidding me? Oh, come on. Now, the Springfield St. Victor is a relatively affordable AR-15 that comes with tons of great features, that has a pretty good look to it, had a decent trigger out of the store, and I was excited to get it on the range and shoot it until I did. And if you guys weren't following the saga of the St. Victor, we put up several videos on the gun. It was a fucking disaster. It was an absolute dumpster fire of epic proportions, and it had the most reliability issues of any AR we've ever had on the channel, and that includes the ATI, so that's really saying something because that's a $300 polymer frame shitbox. We oiled it, we lubricated it. That's it. That's the exact same thing that happened in the last review. For whatever reason, it gets all stuck up there, and you can see this could not be wetter and it could not be cleaner. We tried to fix the St. Victor multiple times, and honestly the only way we fixed the gun is we completely replaced the bolt carrier group with a BCM, and that is usually the way I fix cheap AR-15s, is eventually I just get tired of whatever shitty part is in the bolt carrier and I just replace the bolt or bolt carrier with a Bravo company. And honestly, I wish I would have just bought a BCM to begin with. I have like 9 of those. I've never had any problems with those. I've had more affordable AR-15s than the Springfield St. Victor, like the IWI, the Smith & Wesson, Palmetto, and so on, that have worked very well. And I'm just not sure how the hell a $1,000 or $1,100 gun came out of the factory with as miserable performance as that gun did. You really have to go back and watch the first shots to see just how many times I commented on the ground to try to fix the issue. We had tons of rounds stuck in the gun, and it had failures that you simply couldn't tap and rack. It would have been a failure where you would have literally had to throw your gun on the ground and go to your sidearm. So I would consider the St. Victor one of the biggest fails we've ever had on the channel, and I definitely wish I didn't buy it, because I shot over 1,000 rounds through that gun and it took me a very long time to get them through it, simply because of all the malfunctions we had. Although it was good practice clearing malfunctions, so I guess there's that. If you want to see any more of these, just let me know again in the comments. If you like this video, please like and subscribe. Please help out your Oklahoma shelters, and remember to recycle. I'll check you later.